This episode is brought to you in partnership with the City of Cape Town. Michael Webster is Executive Director for Water and Waste at the City of Cape Town. We'll be discussing the city's water strategy, their thinking and future plans. But before we get into that, Mike, welcome. Give us a brief introduction to your role and background.
Thanks a lot, Dan. It's great to be with you on Future Cities Africa. This is a topic I care a lot about and something that I've worked on professionally for most of my career. I'm currently Executive Director on Water and Waste for the City of Cape Town, and I've had that job since December 2019. And prior to that, I was Director of Water and Sanitation. This makes me accountable for the Water and Sanitation Department as well as the Solid Waste Department in the city. It's a big department. We've got 4 million customers of Cape Town, 20,000 kilometers of pipeline, over 4,000 staff, a 7 billion rand budget. Prior to this position, I worked for the World Bank for 16 years in Eastern Europe, South Asia, Africa. I have 25 years experience in the sector, but originally a civil engineer from UCT with postgraduate qualifications from Loughborough in the UK and Princeton University in the US.
I note you have a lot of international experience on your CV. How does Cape Town compare to other international and African cities in the water sector?
Yeah, so no doubt Cape Town is a world-class city. You know, we see this with our international tourist numbers, but we also have significant challenges: poverty, inequality, crime, and in many ways, this makes Cape Town almost a microcosm of the development challenges that the globe faces. So in the water sector, Cape Town spans these two extremes. Many of our customers, about 80%, have first world water and sewage services, and we provide reliable, efficient services. If we were in the US, we would be in the top 10 providers of water and sewage internationally. However, we do have big challenges. We've got significant numbers of informal settlements who have inconvenient and inadequate supply. We have water quality issues in our rivers, and we have sewer spills, way too many for my liking. If we look at Cape Town in a study that the World Bank did in 2013 on the future of water in African cities, we did a survey of the 30 largest African cities and showed that as demand is increasing, in fact, it's almost tripling over 25 years, and supply is reducing because of climate change, but also water quality. This is the challenge that African cities face in water, and Cape Town is a very good example of exactly that.
So looking back, the City of Cape Town is applauded for its management of the drought and water crisis in 2018. How did you manage to beat this crisis, and what are some of the key takeaways of your success?
Cape Town is indeed prone to droughts. Over the last 100 years, we've had 4 major droughts. The 2014 to 2018 drought was exceptional. It was a 1 in 590 year rainfall event. And this made us particularly vulnerable to this kind of challenge. The city gets almost all of its water, 98% of its water, from surface water, from dams, from rainfall. And that's what made us even more prone to this particular drought event. Our dams come from the Western Cape Water Supply System, which has 6 large dams, 3 owned by the National Department of Water and Sanitation and 3 owned by the city. And if you look at our demand over the last 70 years, we increased steadily around 4% per year until the 2000 drought. From that drought, we actually implemented a lot of water demand management measures, and that flattened our demand to about 1%. But over the 2014-2018 period, that wasn't good enough. We had to actually reduce our demand from about 300 liters per capita per day, similar to the rest of the country, to 100 liters per capita per day. This was a major achievement, a major saving of water. And despite the noise that there was around the event about national and local government and all sorts of other issues, this was a major achievement in that it was a partnership between the city and all of our customers. From the city side, we had physical measures, leak detection, improved metering, pressure management. We introduced high tariffs to drive down demand. We had a major communication campaign around day zero and water saving. But each citizen themselves did their bit. People only used a small amount as they could. They flushed their toilets less often. They took the plugs out of baths. They had short showers. And this was the same for businesses as well. Agriculture also did their bit. About a third of the Western Cape water supply system goes to agriculture, to high-end wine farming mainly, and they actually achieved a 60% savings. So out of this, the city of Cape Town got an award from the International Water Association for the #1 water saving city in the world, a reduction of 55% over 3 years of our demand while not resorting to intermittent supply.
That is incredible. But in hindsight, what would you have done differently as a city to avert the crisis of 2018?
So we've taken the approach, never let a good crisis go to waste. And let's reflect on what actually happened in 2018 and how we could have avoided it going forward. Our key takeaway is that our over-reliance on surface water, the fact that we use 98% of our water from dams, is our biggest vulnerability. In addition, we can't build ourselves out of a drought. So if a drought is coming, if we're in a drought cycle, we only have 2 to 3 years of storage left to actually meet our demand, which is not enough time to build a desalination plant or find alternative sources of water. In addition, going forward over the next 20, 30 years, we are predicting a 30% reduction in our supply from our dams due to climate change. If we look at Perth in Australia, a city very similar to Cape Town in many ways. They have the same latitude as us, 2 degrees north, and they have the same rainfall. Their rainfall is in winter like ours. It comes from cold fronts reaching land. They have seen an 85% reduction in their rainfall going into their dams over the last 50 years. If that had happened to Cape Town, it would be disastrous. So our key 2 measures are twofold. Firstly, to keep our demand down, to have water-wise use, and we're targeting a per capita consumption of around 130 liters per capita per day. And secondly, to have alternate water supply beyond our dam water. And that means groundwater from our aquifers, reused water from our wastewater, desalinated water, and efficient use of water.
Moving on to the city's water strategy, you have 5 key commitments mentioned in the strategy. Can you take us through them?
So largely in response to the drought, the city produced a water strategy called Our Shared Water Future. And I would encourage all listeners to go and look at the strategy online. It's at www.capetown.gov.za/thinkwater. And this really draws from our experience from the drought and using this crisis to make other reforms in the department. Our vision is achieving a water sensitive city by 2040 and a water resilient city by 2030. So that focuses on the resilience, on inclusion, and on sustainability. It's been inspired by other cities around the world that have faced other challenges. Singapore in East Asia, which is probably the most efficient water utility in the world. Medellin in Colombia, that overcame a major exclusion issue. Sydney in Australia, that is exemplary in a water-sensitive city, and Barcelona that has faced similar droughts. We have 5 commitments. The first is safe access to water and sanitation for all of our citizens. And that's really a focus on informal settlements, particularly on ensuring that sanitation and water supply are adequate and that informal settlers feel included in the city. The second is wise water use, ensuring that we don't exceed our demand and target 130 liters per capita per day. The third is sufficient, reliable water supply to all of our citizens. And by that, we want to augment our supply by 300 megaliters a day, an additional 25% through groundwater exploration, desalinated water, and reused water. The fourth is to ensure the regional water supply system, the Western Cape water supply system, is efficiently and effectively managed. and that requires renegotiating our abstraction rights with the National Department of Water and Sanitation, together with agriculture and other municipalities. And lastly, this transition to a water-sensitive city, which is really a transformed relationship with our water, efficient use of stormwater, improved water quality, and a renewed relationship with our very precious resource.
How will these commitments be met, and against what indicators and schedule?
So the strategy was approved by the City Council in 2019, and we have aligned our budgets and our IDP and our various plans around that. We have a 40 billion Rand capital program over the next 10 years, focusing on bulk water, on wastewater and reticulation. The current focus is building the department and the capability of the department to actually deliver on all of these measures. And that's looking at HR, at staffing, ensuring our revenues are sufficient, building our systems, and implementing our strategy. In the medium term, by 2030, we have a goal of water resilience, and that is around our alternate water supply systems, our 300 megaliters a day of additional capacity by 2028, upgrading our major wastewater treatment works to improve our water quality, and upping our pipe replacement program. At the moment, we are underinvesting in both our water and sewer reticulation systems, and this needs to be increased by 2 or 3-fold over the next 10 years. In the longer term, by 2040, our plan is to actually revitalize our whole supply and clean up our river systems. We have 21 rivers in Cape Town. Some of these are highly polluted, like the Dip River and the Soot River and the Dyser River. The transition plan has targets for eight programs. Programs around non-revenue water to ensure our leaks are reduced. Plans around sewer spills to reduce our number of sewer spills per day. Programs on water quality to reduce the pollution in our river system. Ensuring our tariffs are affordable to our customers, ensuring that the department itself has a customer orientation and that we're responsive to customer complaints and managing our customer interface better.
I notice many of these targets are long-term. What progress have you made to date?
So a key element was the development of the strategy, which I mentioned already, together with an implementation plan for the strategy. The implementation plan has 8 transversal programs spanning the full department. We've also hired 4 new directors, and each director has responsibility for 2 of those transversal programs. We've restructured the water and sanitation department. We had 11 branches, we've now got 13. We've added a customer services branch and a capital and contracts management branch to make sure that we are spending efficiently and effectively on our capital program. We've also started the new water program. So this is the additional water supply augmenting our resources. We've implemented temporary desal and temporary reuse plants to learn the technology and ensure that we are able to deliver this alternate water supply. We've done extensive groundwater exploration in the Cape Flats Aquifer, in the Table Mountain Group Aquifer, and in the Atlantis Aquifer. Have drilled over 100 boreholes and are already abstracting groundwater from these aquifers. We've started clearing our alien invasive species in our catchments, as this is actually our cheapest source of water because a lot of the catchments are being degraded from alien invasive species. We've also made progress against our wastewater treatment works. A lot of our wastewater treatment works do not meet their license conditions. About 80% of them meet their license conditions, and we've started a number of major upgrades in the Zandvliet wastewater treatment works, Potsdam, Athlone, and others. We've also made extensive operational improvements to some of our wastewater treatment works, such as Potsdam. A lot of focus on sewer spills. We recognize that our pump stations and our sewers are not performing optimally, and this requires significant investment and operational improvements, but also looking at the financial sustainability of the department itself. That's reliant on our tariff revenues, as well as ensuring our collections are adequate and that our collection rates are up to 95%. And lastly, on maintenance, this is an area that can often be ignored. Maintenance of our assets, of our infrastructure. The percentage of our total capital program that we spend on maintenance needs to be increased, and this is what we are focusing on at the moment.
So on the technology side, what key technologies are you looking at to help you achieve your vision?
So the new water sources outside of surface water, outside of our dams, require a range of new technologies, some of which are used internationally and some of which are used locally, but none of which Cape Town has really done at scale. The most important is probably desalination. We have done temporary desalination plants in Monwa, BC, Strandfontein, and the V&A waterfront. But we've recognized that desal water is probably one of our main sources of water in the long term. It is expensive. It does require technical capability to properly procure and manage these plants. We have identified a new permanent plant that will be 50 to 100 megaliters a day, either in the harbour site or in the Melkbos Strand area. And we're also consulting with National Treasury on whether this should be done as a public-private partnership or should be done in-house. We hope to get our first water from that permanent desal plant by 2028. Second, technologies around groundwater. So we've got extensive groundwater exploration, and this is going into building our long-term augmentation program around fully exploiting our aquifers. The third is reuse. Reuse is one of our most exciting new sources of water. We have a temporary reuse project producing 10 megaliters a day at Zandvliet, and we are starting to procure a permanent desal plant, which will be the Fora New Water Scheme. This, when constructed, will actually be the biggest potable, direct potable reuse plant in the world by far. So we're very excited about that and are learning the technologies necessary to properly run that. In wastewater, a lot of R&D and procurement around sludge treatment. This is a new challenge for the city and for our 23 wastewater treatment plants, and are ensuring our biological treatment processes are adequate. A lot of decision support schemes, for example, in bulk water, around our extensive bulk water infrastructure. Unlike other cities that have water boards, the city of Cape Town actually controls our own bulk water supply to a large extent, and this requires quite sophisticated technology. Metering, we're also looking at automated meter readings and advanced metering infrastructure. This would be state-of-the-art AMI technology to improve the customer experience and to improve the efficiency of our meters. And this is also part of our digital transformation agenda, looking at our IT systems and other IT support to our operations.
What advice do you have for the private sector to collaborate with the department on the implementation of the strategy?
So the private sector is vital to the success of this strategy. We need the private sector to come in and implement a lot of our design and construction work. We rely on significant contracting of all of our works, and we really see the core nature of this as a shared program between public and private, as well as our citizens, as well as multiple tiers of government. So that partnership approach of joining hands with the private sector in this strategy of reducing our demand, ensuring we have efficient use, wise water use, as well as augmenting our supply where possible, is really about a public-private relationship that we think is necessary in order to implement the strategy.
So what key opportunities are there for the private sector to collaborate with the City of Cape Town on the implementation of the water strategy?
So we see the private sector as a key partner in this space. A lot of this work needs to be contracted through our supply chain management process with the private sector, both consulting work, design and supervision, as well as construction work. We've got a 40 billion rand capital program over the next 10 years, and most of that will be contracted through the private sector. So we think there should be significant interest from the private sector in partnering with us in tendering for works that are put on our supply chain management process, and would encourage the private sector to gear up to come and work with the City of Cape Town on implementing our water strategy.
What are some of the major challenges that is currently in the way of better public and private sector collaboration?
I think public sector contracting the world over, and definitely in South Africa, is cumbersome. Our supply chain management processes are robust, and this is needed in order to ensure accountability and good governance of the public sector. But that can be a hindrance. We know from our private sector colleagues, procuring using our MFMA, our Municipal Finance Management Act, and our various supply chain management guidelines takes time. It can be regarded as cumbersome, and it can be considered inefficient compared to private contracting. So we do recognize that that has been an impediment. We are ensuring that we are as efficient and professional as possible in our procurement processes. And we'd encourage private sector that has the capability and that share this vision with us to contract with us where appropriate.
And then lastly, knowing what you know now from all the various water shocks that you've experienced, day zero, the water quality, and most recently the pandemic, what advice would you give to other cities grappling with their water management?
So Cape Town has realized that climate change is real. What we faced in 2014, 2018, a 1 in 590 year rainfall event, will happen to other cities. We've seen the effects of this in Perth. We've also recognized that we need to get ahead of this. We can't build ourselves out of a drought. So the key finding for us is building this resilience into our system through diversifying our sources, through ensuring our staff and our systems are agile and are resilient. We also need to build our sustainability. Our water quality impacted by our sewage system and our wastewater treatment plants is problematic, and that requires long-term investment in wastewater treatment upgrades, but also collaboration with the public on what they put in the sewers, and a whole system approach to ensure the sustainability of our network. We also need to be inclusive. At the moment, informal settlements don't feel part of the system. They don't feel adequately served. And that creates social and system-wide unrest apart from the moral imperative to do so. So ensuring everyone in the city feels included in our services and have adequately got satisfactory water and sanitation services. Our customer orientation is a major concern. The drought did erode some trust by customers that the city had this in hand. So we are actively working to restore that trust and to ensure that we are credible professional partners. We've done that through developing the strategy, through developing clear priorities, but also ensuring that we deliver that strategy and we're implementing what we said we would do and trying to communicate as clearly and transparently as possible. And lastly, through partnerships. We do see this as a shared water strategy. We survived the drought through partnerships, the city and customers, and we want to do that through partnerships going forward, specifically in informal settlements. How do we get informal settlement communities to partner with us to improve their quality of life and their services? How do we get water pollution improved through all the polluters within the catchment, and that is public and private catchment and industry, and through wise water use? How do we ensure that all Cape Townians use the amount of water that we can afford to have within a drought-prone area? And that's a partnership. That's a partnership program, really using the shock of the drought and of COVID and of the other shocks that we've seen to build back better, a more resilient, sustainable, inclusive system.